A man lost $400,000 in just 8 months of living in Vegas, not because of a crypto investment or regular visits to the strip, but because he bought a house in the wrong location. And it's not just one city, we're talking about 12 other cities in Nevada that are financial death traps disguised as real estate opportunities. Your realtor won't tell you about them because they need that commission. But we're about to expose the truth they're hiding from you. This is the countdown of the top 12 worst cities to buy a home in Nevada for 2025. And first, 12. Ely, population 4,255. The kind of place where tumbleweeds outnumber job opportunities. Median home price, $185,000. Population decline, -8% since 2020. Unemployment rate, 12.3%. Nearest major city, 240 miles to Las Vegas. Wait, $185,000 sounds like a bargain, right? That's like being excited about a $10 Rolex. The mining industry that built Ely is dead. The railroad jobs have disappeared. What's left is a town desperately clinging to its past while young people flee. The housing market is a graveyard of broken dreams. Houses sit on the market for 200+ days because nobody wants to move somewhere that feels like the set of a post-apocalyptic movie. Your investment property becomes a charity case that bleeds money every month. The infrastructure is crumbling, roads that haven't been properly maintained since the Carter administration, internet speeds that make dial-up look fast. Cell service is so spotty that emergency calls become a prayer to whatever deity controls satellite signals. But hey, at least the cost of living is low. That's because there's literally nothing to spend money on except gas for your escape route. Still, in spite of all these, the next city managed to combine isolation with genuine danger. 11. West Wendover. Median home price, $198,000. Crime index, 402.8. US average, 202.6. Population, 4,540. Economic dependency, 90% gambling, tourism. Picture this. You buy a house in what locals optimistically call a border town, but what everyone else recognizes as a place where desperation has a street address. The crime index for West Wendover is 402.8, which is 200.2 higher than the US average. The entire economy runs on one industry, separating tourists from their money. When tourism hiccups, the whole town goes into cardiac arrest. COVID-19 proved this spectacularly. Businesses closed, residents fled, and property values plummeted. The housing stock is a collection of trailers, aging apartments, and houses that look like they were designed by someone who'd given up on life. Most properties are rentals for casino workers making minimum wage, plus whatever tips they can scrape together from desperate gamblers. Your neighbors aren't building equity, they're building tolerance for the sound of slot machines at 3 a.m. The demographic is transient workers, problem gamblers, and people hiding from something. Not exactly the foundation for stable property values. The air quality is what happens when you combine desert dust with cigarette smoke from a dozen casinos. It's like living inside an ashtray that someone left in Death Valley. But at least West Wendover has casinos, unlike our next city, which has all the economic depression without any of the entertainment. 10. Yerington, population 3,120, where agriculture meets reality and loses spectacularly. Median home price, $297,410. Water shortage severity, critical. Job growth, -3.2% annually. Major employer departures, 2 in the past 18 months. The agricultural economy is dying a slow, expensive death. Farmers are selling their land to developers who can't find buyers because nobody wants to live in an agricultural ghost town. The median home price of $297,410 would be reasonable if there were, reasons to live here. Instead, you're paying nearly $300,000 for the privilege of watching tumbleweeds roll past your investment property. The youth exodus is brutal. Anyone under 30 with 2 brain cells to rub together leaves for Reno or Vegas. What remains is an aging population that can't afford to maintain their properties and a housing market that moves more slowly than government bureaucracy. Infrastructure? What infrastructure? Roads that were last properly maintained when disco was popular. Public transportation that consists of hitchhiking and prayer. The rental market is non-existent because there's no reason for anyone to move here. Your investment property becomes a money pit with a view of dying alfalfa fields. Employment opportunities are so scarce that the biggest employer is probably the post office, and even they're considering cutbacks. But hey, if you enjoy the sound of economic silence, you'll love the deafening quiet of our next city's collapsing dreams. 9. Carlin. Carlin, population 2,300, the cheapest housing in Nevada, and there's a reason it's cheap. Median home price, $184,674. Population decline, minus 15% since 2015. Distance to civilization, 80 miles. Annual tumbleweed festivals, approximately 365. That $184,674 median home price isn't a bargain, it's a warning. Houses are cheap here because nobody wants them. It's like finding a Ferrari for $1,000. The mining jobs that sustained Carlin are disappearing fast. Newmont Mining's operations are winding down, automation is replacing workers, and the remaining jobs pay barely enough to cover the gas. The social scene consists of exactly one bar, one gas station, and a whole lot of regret. Dating means driving 80 miles to Elko and hoping your car doesn't break down on the way back. Entertainment is watching trains pass through town without stopping. Your property investment strategy here is basically hoping that someone, someday, will be more desperate than you were when you bought. The weather is brutal, scorching summers, freezing winters, and wind that never stops. It's like Mother Nature got angry and decided to take it out on this specific patch of the Nevada desert. But at least Carlin has trains passing through. Our next city has mastered isolation. 8. Lovelock, median home price, $156,000. Prison employment dependency, 47%. Youth retention rate, 8%. Fastest growing business, moving services. The name Lovelock is ironic because the only thing locked here is your money once you buy property. The biggest employer is the state prison, which tells you everything about the local economy. Half the town works in corrections, and the other half wishes they could escape. The housing market is so stagnant that for sale signs become permanent yard decorations. Properties sit empty for years because even prisoners being released choose to move somewhere else. The demographic is aging fast. Young people leave for college and never return, except maybe for awkward Christmas visits where they confirm their decision to never come back. Infrastructure maintenance is a joke that stopped being funny decades ago. Streets with potholes so large they have their own zip codes. Water systems that predate indoor plumbing innovations. The social opportunities are limited to watching other people leave town. The nightlife consists of staring at stars and wondering what you did wrong in life to end up here. Your rental property sits empty because even desperate renters have standards. The appreciation rate is negative, which means your house becomes worth less money over time. But hey, at least Lovelock is small enough that everyone knows your name, unlike our next city where knowing your neighbor might be a safety hazard. 7. Hawthorne. Median home price, $201,500. Military dependency, 78% of the economy. Explosion incidents, don't ask. Insurance premiums, call for quote. Translation, expensive. Living next to the world's largest ammunition storage facility is like playing Russian roulette with your real estate investment. One bad day at the depot and your property becomes a historical footnote. The military dependency means that when defense budgets get cut, the entire town goes into economic freefall. Civilian jobs are scarce because most businesses serve the military base. It's an economic monoculture more fragile than a house of cards. The housing market is held hostage by military housing allowances. When those change, property values swing wildly. The demographic is almost entirely military families who transfer every few years. Nobody puts down roots because nobody stays. It's a community of permanent temporary residents, which makes property value stability impossible. Insurance costs are astronomical because insurance companies aren't stupid. They know what happens when you build neighborhoods next to explosive storage facilities. The resale market is limited to people who don't mind living in the blast radius of enough ammunition to level a small country. That's a pretty specific buyer profile, but at least the explosions would be quick. Our next city offers a slower, more agonizing economic demise. 6. Caliente. Caliente. Population 1,130. Spanish for hot, but the only thing hot here is the desperation radiating from property owners trying to sell. Median home price, $145,000. Business closures since 2020, 23 of 31. Average time on market, 347 days. Economic growth rate, negative 7.3% annually. The town was built to serve trains, and when the trains stopped needing service, Caliente became a monument to economic obsolescence. That $145,000 median home price is a cry for help. Houses are priced to move, but they don't move because nobody wants to move to a place that time forgot and prosperity abandoned. The business district looks horrible. Buildings with broken windows, faded signs advertising businesses that closed decades ago. The population is aging out. Young people leave for high school graduation and treat returning to Caliente like a prison sentence. The remaining residents are too old to move and too poor to maintain their properties. Your investment property becomes a tax liability that generates no income. The rental market is non-existent because there's no economy to attract renters. You end up paying property taxes on a house that nobody wants to buy and nobody can afford to rent. The infrastructure is failing fast. Roads, water systems, and electrical grids that were designed for a much larger population haven't been properly maintained since God knows when. But now that we're down to our top 5, I suggest you pay attention. Because we're taking things to a whole new level, starting with a city where the silence is broken by the sound of your investment washing down the drain. Number 5, Goldfield. Median home price, $89,500. Population peak, 30,000 in 1906. Current economic base, nostalgia and regret. Cell phone coverage, good luck with that. Wait, what? $89,500 for a house in 2025. That's not a home price. That's what people pay for a used Cybertruck. And when houses are priced like that, there's something catastrophically wrong with them. Goldfield is Nevada's ghost town that hasn't figured out it's supposed to be dead. The population peaked at 30,000 during the gold rush over a century ago. Now it has 268 residents, most of whom are there because they're too stubborn to admit defeat. The housing consists of abandoned buildings, mobile homes that stopped being mobile decades ago, and structures that defy both physics and building codes. Your house might be a former saloon from 1905 that someone added indoor plumbing to as an afterthought. There's no economy, none. The biggest business transaction is probably someone buying a Coke at the single gas station that may or may not be open, depending on whether the owner remembered to unlock the door. Your property investment strategy here is praying that someone starts a museum about economic failure and needs authentic examples. The resale market consists of people who make the same mistake you did, which statistically happens about once every 5 years. The infrastructure is what archaeologists study to understand how previous civilizations failed. Roads that are more pothole than pavement, utilities that work when they feel like it, the internet that exists purely in theory. But hey, you'll have plenty of peace to contemplate your poor life choices. Unlike our next city, where contemplation gets interrupted by crime statistics. Number 4, Sparks. Median home price, $489,899. Crime rate, 15% above state average. Infrastructure grade, D+, American Society of Civil Engineers. Traffic congestion increase, 34% since 2020. Wait, hold on, nearly $500,000 for a house in Sparks. That's a financial death sentence. Winnemucca and Reno are the most violent cities in the state, but Sparks is trying its best to compete. The crime rate is climbing faster than housing prices, which is saying something in Nevada's overheated market. The city is experiencing rapid growth without the infrastructure to support it. Traffic jams that turn a 10-minute drive into a 45-minute meditation on poor life choices. Schools are overcrowded to the point where learning becomes secondary to just finding somewhere to sit. The housing market is inflated by people fleeing California who think that anywhere in Nevada is automatically better. They're discovering that paying $500,000 for a house next to a meth lab isn't the improvement they expected. The neighborhood quality varies wildly from block to block. You might pay luxury prices for a house next to what local police call high activity areas, which is cop speak for bring backup and wear body armor. Property taxes are climbing to fund infrastructure that should have been built decades ago. Your investment property becomes a monthly reminder that growth without planning is just expensive chaos. The rental market is competitive, but your tenants might be people who got priced out of worse places, which doesn't exactly scream stable long-term investment. But at least Sparks is trying to grow. Our next city has mastered the art of decline. 3. North Las Vegas. North Las Vegas. Population 262,527. The part of Las Vegas that even Las Vegas doesn't want to claim. Median home price, $427,500. Crime rate, 45% above the national average. Unemployment, 8.7%. Municipal bankruptcy filings, 2 since 2010. The median home price of $427,500 buys you the privilege of living in Las Vegas's troubled younger sibling. The crime statistics read like a crime novelist's research notes. With a violent crime rate that is 13% higher than the Nevada average, it's not hard to see why Las Vegas made the list. And North Las Vegas makes regular Las Vegas look like a suburban paradise. The housing market is propped up by investors who think they're getting Las Vegas access at discount prices. What they're actually getting is proximity to problems without proximity to solutions. The schools are struggling so hard that parents consider private school a necessity, not a luxury. Your property taxes fund educational systems that produce graduates who leave immediately for better opportunities elsewhere. The infrastructure is aging faster than casino showgirls. Roads designed for a much smaller population, water systems stretched beyond capacity, and public services that operate on hope and caffeine. The employment opportunities are mostly service jobs supporting Las Vegas tourism. When Vegas catches a cold, North Las Vegas gets pneumonia. Your rental income depends on an economy built on other people's recreational spending. The neighborhood stability is non-existent. High turnover rates mean you're constantly dealing with new tenants, property damage, and the kind of stress that makes real estate investment feel like extreme sports. But hey, at least you're close to the Strip. Unlike our next city, where the only strip is the highway leading out of town. Number 2, Reno. Median home price, $526,000. Violent crime rank, number 1 in Nevada. Homelessness increased 67% since 2019. Cost of living increase 28% in 3 years. Wait, what? Reno is worse than North Las Vegas? Oh, this is where it gets interesting. Winnemucca and Reno are the most violent cities in the state, and Reno earned this distinction while simultaneously becoming unaffordable for the people who actually work there. The housing market is completely disconnected from local wages. Tech workers from California are driving up prices while local residents get priced out. The homeless population has exploded by 67% since 2019. Your expensive investment property is surrounded by tent cities. The violent crime rate is the highest in Nevada. The property crime rate means your investment might literally get stolen piece by piece. Gentrification is happening so fast. That hip, up-and-coming area you bought into might become a crime hotspot before your first mortgage payment clears. The rental market is brutal for tenants, which sounds good for landlords until you realize that desperate renters often become problematic renters. The city services are stretched thinner than a gambler's luck. Police response times, infrastructure maintenance, and public utilities are all struggling to keep up with the growth that nobody planned for. But even Reno's spectacular dysfunction pales in comparison to our #1 worst city, the place where real estate dreams don't just die, they get eliminated in broad daylight. Number 1, Las Vegas. Las Vegas, Sin City, the place where your real estate investment goes to gamble away its own value and loses spectacularly. Median home price, $455,000. Property crime rate, number 1 in Nevada. Water shortage severity, emergency level. Climate change vulnerability, extreme. Economic dependency on tourism, 47%. Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the summit of real estate stupidity. Las Vegas, where paying nearly $500,000 for a house in the desert somehow makes sense to people who should know better. Sin City is the worst ranked for property crime in Nevada. Your investment property becomes a target for criminals who are literally more organized than the city planning department. The water crisis is real, permanent, and expensive. Lake Mead is disappearing fast, and your property value is tied to a resource that might not exist in 20 years. The economy runs on tourism, which means when something catastrophic happens, everything stops. COVID-19 proved this spectacularly. Unemployment hit 30%, property values plummeted, and suddenly nobody wanted to live in a city built entirely on other people's vacation spending. The housing market is propped up by speculators who think short-term rentals will make them rich. The neighborhoods are full of Airbnb properties that turn residential areas into hotel districts. The infrastructure is melting, literally. Roads that buckle in 120-degree heat, power grids that fail when everyone turns on their air conditioning, and construction materials that weren't designed for surface of Mars temperatures. The property taxes are climbing to fund services for a population that swells and shrinks with tourism patterns. You're paying taxes based on peak population, but getting services based on off-season budgets. The rental market is oversaturated with short-term rentals, which means your long-term rental competes with tourist tourist vacation budgets. Good luck explaining to tenants why their rent is higher than a hotel room on the Strip. The demographic is transient workers, retirees spending their last decades, and people hiding from something. None of these groups builds the kind of stable communities that support consistent property values. But here's the real kicker. Climate change is turning Nevada into a preview of hell, and Las Vegas is ground zero. Your investment property might become uninhabitable within your mortgage term. The insurance costs are astronomical and climbing. Home insurance, flood insurance, fire insurance, and whatever new disasters climate change invents. Your insurance premiums might exceed your mortgage payments. While everyone's talking about Nevada's booming market and tax advantages, these 12 cities prove that not all Nevada real estate is created equal. Some places will take your money and leave you with nothing to show for it. The choice is yours. Keep believing that Nevada is automatically a good investment, or recognize that location applies even in a state with no income tax. But wait, if these are the places to avoid, where should you actually invest? Our next video reveals the hidden gems in other states. Click to discover the top 12 best cities to buy a home in California for 2025.